I believe there's a place called Papua New Guinea because I trust maps and I've studied about it. But I know my brother. I wouldn't say I believe I have a brother because I know the guy. So knowledge...
Are you saying you don't know that there's a Papua New Guinea? What is the evidence for God? What is the reason that anybody should believe there's a God at all?
Okay.
And so far, despite countless debates, nobody seems to have come up with a sound reason for that, and yet they go 10 steps further, which is not only is there a God, but it's this God, and my understanding of this God, and this is how we interact, and the Bible is the true guidebook, or the Quran is the true guidebook, and the question then becomes, we have a proposition, any proposition, whether it's God or climate change or whatever, how do we go about determining whether or not that proposition is reasonable to accept?
Okay.
And on the God front, maybe you have something better than anybody else has come up with. What is the reasonable warrant for accepting that there's a God at all?
Okay, let me try to answer that. I start with the fact that here we are flung into the world with no clear understanding of A, where the universe came from, not the earth, but the universe. B, why we're here and what the purpose of our life is. And C, what, if anything, happens to us after we die. I would argue that, so we are in a very peculiar position where human beings were flung into the world, and the three of the most important questions we could possibly ask, we have no answer to. Now
I'm going to agree with you.
Do you agree or you not agree?
I'm going to agree with you on two of the three. The middle one on purpose, I think, assumes there's a purpose that there's been no demonstration there's a purpose to it.
What, if any, purpose we have for our
Sure.
life? Okay, so now we are in agreement that on the three cardinal questions, we are in a certain kind of blindness. We're in a certain kind of blind ignorance because we don't know, correct?
So so if we start you're saying we're flung into this universe without an understanding of the origin of the universe, the purpose of life, or what happens afterwards.
Right, where the universe came from,
Yes.
who, if anyone, or
Sure.
what made it, if anyone. B, what the purpose of our life is, if any. And C, what, if anything, happens to us after we die.
We are in violent agreement right now.
Perfect. Now, the second question arises, what does science have to say about these three questions? Can science either now, and if it can't now, settle these matters in the future? Let's look at them one by one. Let's take them in reverse order.
Sure.
Can science decide the matter of whether or not there is life after death, yes or no?
It depends.
Depends on what?
So science only deals with the natural world.
Correct.
And so if in fact there's a supernatural existence after this, then it may forever be beyond the purview of science.
Correct. Or if there is another universe that operates according to different laws and we happen to move somehow into that universe, science would have nothing to say about it, correct?
Not necessarily, because
Okay.
if it's a natural, like we have like hypotheses about a multiverse or whatever.
Correct.
I can't say what science will be able to test for in the future, or whether or not we are permanently confined to the cosmos that we experience. I can't say. I can't say that science could never say anything about the supernatural. All I can say is that as it stands right now, I'm unaware of any supernatural claim that has any evidence for it that science could evaluate to determine that it was true.
Right. Let's put it a little differently because I don't want to debate the detail here. I just want to look at the macro picture. And what I'm basically saying is Shakespeare said, I think correctly, death is the undiscovered country. No one has been to the other side of the curtain and essentially reported, given us empirical evidence one way or the other, correct? We don't know what happens after death. True?
So here's the thing, and I promise I'm not being difficult. This is just for clarity. As a skeptic, my position is not, like when the psychics who claim that they're speaking with the dead.
Right.
My position is not, they're wrong and that's bullshit. My position is, they cannot demonstrate that what they're actually doing is what they claim. And so I can't say, nobody's been to the other side and communicated back. I can just say there's no reliable evidence for it, and I don't know what shape that evidence would take in order to demonstrate that.
Okay, I want to come back to that because that you've now made to me a very striking claim, namely that we should, I think you're saying, disbelieve all claims for which there is not sufficient evidence.
So
Not just that we should take an agnostic position, but we should disbelieve them. That's two different things.
Oh, so if you mean disbelieve as in believe they are not true, that's the exact opposite of what I just said.
Okay.
What I said was we should believe things when there's evidence for it, and that is both the proposition that the supernatural is real and the proposition that the supernatural is not real.
Okay.
You can so agnosticism isn't some middle ground between believing X and believing not X. There is no middle ground. You are either convinced of X or you are not convinced of X. And I'm not convinced that the supernatural is real. That doesn't mean that I'm convinced that the supernatural isn't real. It's kind of like if you go into a courtroom,
Okay.
I may have to say not guilty, even if I'm not convinced of innocence, because the burden of proof is on the claim of guilt. And so the people who say, I have good evidential warrant to believe in the supernatural, have adopted a burden of proof, and they have to meet it. And until they do, I am not convinced.
Okay, but let's be clear about what that burden of proof is, because I'm not saying I have definitive proof that God exists or these are his attributes. Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't know if there is a God in the sense of no. I'd call myself a believer. Now, right away, we distinguish between a believer and a knower, right?
Sure.
It's an important distinction.
Subset of belief.
I believe there's a place called Papua New Guinea because I trust maps and I've studied about it. But I know my brother. I wouldn't say I believe I have a brother because I know the guy. So knowledge.
Are you saying you don't know that there's a Papua New Guinea?
No, I'm saying I know it in the sense that I accept the authorities from which I learn about it.
Sure.
I trust it.
Well,
and if I went
clarity,
there,
it's not just relying on authorities, it's actual evidence. So you have a belief in a proposition.
right?
Whether or not it qualifies as knowledge is a separate question because knowledge is a subset of belief. In philosophy, it would be justified true belief. I tend to use a more kind of colloquial because I'm a dilettante. I'm an uneducated oaf who just talks a lot. But if you have a proposition and you accept that it's true, that's all I mean when I say I believe it. You either accept it or you don't. If I say I know it, all we generally mean, all most people mean when they say I know something is that they really, 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 really believe it. They're talking about the confidence level that they have in that proposition that it is likely true. And when we say I know something, generally we're saying I believe this to the extent that it would be worldview altering to discover it was wrong. And so I believe there's a Papua New Guinea. I would actually argue that I know, I have evidential warrant that there's a Papua New Guinea without actually ever having been there. This is, people used to do the, you don't know there's an Australia. Well, I do now because I've been there. But even before I was there, I think that I had evidential warrant for it.
Yeah, but okay, I agree with that. And I know that there's a Papua New Guinea in that sense. Let's take a different example. Let's say I were to tell you I'm from India. Okay? You have no reason to doubt me. You probably believe I'm from India.
Yeah.
Now, you don't actually know that.
It depends on what you mean by know.
Well,
and it
are you
also,
100% sure?
No. Is 100% certainty required for knowledge?
Not necessarily, but
I would
what's
agree.
your bar?
So I don't think you can be 100% certain about anything.
Okay.
Which is why I abandon the notion of certainty, which is why when I talk about knowledge, I talk about it as a subset of belief and that it's a confidence level. But also, I genuinely don't really, I'm unimpressed when someone says they know something because we don't wait till we have knowledge to act. We act in accordance with our beliefs. And whether or not your belief rises to the level of knowledge doesn't change what your action's going to be.
All right.